WBET 1460. Welcome to Conversations with Marian Wroble.
Good morning and welcome to Conversations. We have a no-nonsense, nitty-gritty, how-to-help-you-not get stuck show today. You may recall that we actually started a series with the AAA, the American Automobile Association, because I think they have reams of very valuable information to pass along to you, and as we've said on both past occasions, much more than many of us stop to realize. We think of AAA when we're going to make a trip, perhaps, or we think of them when the car breaks down and we have to call somebody for help. But there's lots more to being a member of AAA, and there's lots more information they can have. Last month, we talked about new cars because it was just about the time that big new car sales were going to go up. And then we realized that lots of people buy used cars because they can't afford a new car at today's prices, or because they want a second car, maybe for the wife, maybe for a youngster in the family. And, you know, the old cliche, would you buy a used car from this guy, is supposed to indicate how much you would trust somebody. So John Paul, who's the manager of the Automotive Technical Services at the Rockland offices of the American Automobile Association, is back to talk to us this morning about that. Welcome back, John.
Thanks for having me back.
My pleasure. As I said, lots of information to pass along, and it's the little things that we sometimes regret later that we didn't think of beforehand. And, of course, all the cliches are running in my head today when you talk about used cars, not only the basic one I mentioned, but, you know, let the buyer beware. I guess it applies in that instance almost more than any place else. Maybe a house is the other big place.
Very much so, especially when you're buying a used car, because you don't really know where it's been. Mm-hmm. If used cars could talk, there would be some stories. You know, there's different ways to go buy a used car, different places to get them from. Private party sales, dealerships, small used car dealers. And you have to be a little bit aware of each one where you're going.
Is there any one of those that's the smartest way to go?
Well, going with a dealer sale, at least you have a warranty. Where a private party sale, you
never get that.
No, you don't get that at all. The other thing, too, with a dealer sale, you're going to typically pay a little bit more because they have to put that little profit margin in where they can cover a problem in case it comes up. So that's always a problem, too. And,
for the care and feeding of the use of the car almost while they've had it on their lot.
That's right.
Let me stop you there for just a second, too, because the thought occurs to me, you know, when a car dealer takes in your old car as a trade when you're buying a new car, and we talked last time about how you try to get the best deal that way if you possibly can and so forth. Does that also then affect the price they're going to try and get back? If they gave you a real good deal, gave someone else a real good deal on a trade-in, or does it matter?
There's some somewhat established prices for used cars, the book value, if you will. And they're going to tend to always give you as low a price as they can give you and try to charge as much as they can for it.
Sure.
There's always a little variable in there, but typically if you got a really super deal as far as you bought the car for maybe $100 or $200 over cost, and then they took your car in trade, they're going to try to get as much as they can for it, depending on if your trade-in is, you know, a good saleable kind of car. They may look at it and it may end up at a car auction, and then it may end up back at like a smaller used car deal or somebody who...
And does the price go up each step of that way, necessarily?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Usually just kind of the opposite. It'll tend to, as it gets away from the glitzy new car dealer, the price will tend to go down a little bit.
Okay. Well, that's good advice right there alone.
Yeah. The other thing we're starting to see, too, is a lot more fleet vehicles that are being offered for sale, rental vehicles. Hertz, Avis, the major rental companies, they're starting to really put their cars out on the market now. They're under some obligation with the manufacturers now that the manufacturer will take the car back. Those cars typically can be a pretty good deal because they're usually only out in the public for maybe 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
So you're buying a
long
model year, and with, I believe, most of the finance institutions, I know with AAA and their loan program, if you're buying the current model year or the 1990 model year, it qualifies for the new car loan price. So rather than paying 12.75%, you may be only paying 10.9%. So that little bit of a difference, you might say, well, gee, really, I can't afford a new car, but you look at one that's maybe just a year old, you're paying less per month, it may be to your benefit. You know?
Sure. You have to look at the big picture, in other words.
That's right.
Good morning. You're in Conversations.
Good morning, Marilyn.
Hi.
And your guest, I'm glad to see that your son is back home and safe and sound.
Thank you very much. So am I.
That's a relief on you and your loved ones.
It certainly is.
This gentleman's talking about used cars, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I don't interfere too much, but I want to tell the experience on about the used cars. How about people buying new cars?
Yeah, we talked about that last month, about the new car situation. Of course, the prices are very high now.
I bought a S10 Blazer, 1987. I'm not going to mention the dealership.
Okay.
The more I bought that car, which was on the warranty guarantee, the worse they worked on it, the worse it got.
Mm.
No, when everything's computerized. Now, for example, when you lose your brakes, you lose everything. It's not like the old days when you had a regular brake. You put your brakes down there, it was allowed so for safety.
Yeah.
These things, if the computer goes out, you're lost. That's it.
Okay, it's the way cars are made today, right?
Anyway, it started with exhaust. It started a big smear of smoke. Every time you start that car up in the morning, you'd have a big line of smoke. Brought the car back to the dealership. You know, the same old cliche, same old story. You leave it here with us. We'll take care of it. When they get through it, it was worse than I even brought it in.
Oh, heavens.
It continued for 4 months. Finally, I went from this garage thinking I'm going to another dealer.
Mm-hmm.
I turned that 87 Blazer in for a 89, right?
Mm-hmm.
That really took the cake. I got involved, in, as a matter of fact, in your town in the collision.
Yeah.
I got it whacked at the right
dear.
side. It consists of that's the biggest rip-off I ever seen. The AAA probably investigate this case. I couldn't believe my eyes what I went through. Of course, the insurance paid for it. The other company, I was not at fault. I was hit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So the damage amounted to over $3,000, and you would never believe what that company. I bought that vehicle from that company, thinking that now I bought that, the parts would be easy to get.
Sure.
They held that vehicle up almost 4 months and a half before they finally brought the car into my driveway. The steering wheel was still 45 degrees off angle. The front end was completely out of whack. The door they replaced was a different color, completely different. The two hubcaps plus the wheels they replaced were altogether different. You know, and I could finally I hemmed and hawed, and I could see I'm not going to get nowhere. First of all, the appraiser did a lousy job from the insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
I finally gave up as a tackler. So I finally get these little nicks and crevices that were omitted but to my own garage. I finally get sick and tired. But I just want to bring this up.
Cars are a real pain sometimes.
You think you're going to buy a new car with that crazy warranty? I called up the Chevrolet company I don't know how many times, and the answer was bring it back where you bought the car from.
Yeah.
You might as well bring it to the Syrian, the Sahara Desert for all they're going to do for you. So I just want to...
You've had some bad luck with cars, Al.
My car, the first car that I ever bought was a 1936 Chevrolet Plymouth.
Yeah.
I bought another car that was a Bel Air Chevy 1962. It was the best little car I had.
They don't make them like they used to, huh?
It only brings us to this gentleman, the AAA, that, you know, to get involved, you have to be involved. You would never believe. That's why your insurance and everything else is completely out of whack. And
so high, yeah. Because it has to make up for those kinds of mistakes.
You have a car that's not a lemon. When you buy it, you're lucky, hang on to it. That's it. You never get a lemon like I did. I'm sure a lot of other people have.
That's why AAA is trying to give some warnings ahead of time about some of those things. That's amazing.
You know, Marilyn, there's nothing you can do about it. Buying a second-hand car, you're buying somebody else's troubles anyway.
I knew we were going to get that cliche in somewhere, too.
Right.
That's the other one I forgot.
Not getting rid of something good if it wasn't anything good.
Yeah.
The idea you might look at the state police when they get rid of their cars. You mean to tell me anybody in their right mind would buy one? You know what I mean? It goes on and on. But the reason I called you or bothered you because I always hear this stuff about the used cars.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big ripoff, but believe me, you can get ripped off by the brand new one too.
But the new ones too. So we got to again. We said let the buyer beware and try to color. We'll try to give some real hints
it's
today.
An old man, and from what I have seen back in the 30s, when you could bring a car in the garage, and they'd work on it and repair it. You know that car was going to be running beautifully. Those days are gone.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Or when you could do it yourself. Yeah.
And their wings clip continuously. So just like buying a house that's worth $36,000, you pay $150,000.
Right. That's right. That's the way the times have gone.
Your pardon.
No problem at all, Al. Thanks for sharing that with us. That's the kind of frustration we have.
Stories about, people, and another thing, the young kids usually get ripped off when they use car parking lots. They get away with it.
It's true. We want to discuss that, how the
They always
youngsters
get ripped
need
off.
some advice.
Then they repossess it,
Thanks, Al. Thanks for sharing your problems with us. We'll try and solve some of those.
For running off a little bit over the time limit. Yeah.
No, that's okay. Good to hear from you.
Patty's Day.
You too. Okay, bye-bye now. Well, he's got a point there. You buy a new car, you never know. We talked about that the last time, and there is such a thing as a lemon law now to try and help in those situations. And boy, when you get one of those deals where from the day one that something is wrong, it seems like that's the way it's going to be.
It can be real frustrating. In Massachusetts, we're fortunate enough to have a used car lemon law as well.
Okay.
So when you buy a used car, it falls sort of under the same criteria as the regular lemon law. The dealer has so many attempts to repair a certain item, and then you do the paperwork to have them repurchase the car if it can't.
I see. That's wonderful. Yeah.
You
have to have a lot of stamina, though.
You have to. Yeah. You have to have a lot of stamina. You have
to keep the battle going.
That's
and
right.
not give up in frustration.
Yeah. Sometimes the paperwork part of it can be the most frustrating part. I've had people say that doing the paperwork was worse than putting up with the car.
Well, it all depends.
Whether that's true or not, I'm
not when you
sure.
depend on it for your transportation. I was talking to somebody just yesterday who was having trouble with her car, and she said, I don't know which way to go. Whether to have them look at it again because they've tried to fix it, and it was one of the things with the timer. Speed it up a little bit, and then it's jumping away from me, and I'm afraid it's going to take me away. Then slow it down, and now it's stalling. You got to find that little niche right in the middle. But sometimes it does take some stick-to-itiveness. I think he brought up two good points, though. One is the fact that things are computerized today, and therefore, as he mentioned, if one thing goes, everything can go at once. If the computer gets out of whack, want to address that?
To a certain extent. If the computer itself goes bad, that's sort of the brain behind the whole system, and that's what makes everything work. So if that system goes bad, you can run into some problems. But on most of the newer cars, a lot of them have a fail-safe system. So the car will kind of limp along. It won't run well, but it will at least run and get you where you want to go. The other thing is the ability to be able to repair computerized cars. Well, they've been around for a solid 10 years now. So more and more, the ability to repair the car is out there. A lot of shops have stopped doing them. They've gone into a different line of
your local
work
garage with a really great mechanic sometimes can't handle that.
That's right. But now they're to the point where they've been out there now for 10 years. Most of the mechanics now have a pretty good understanding of them. There may be some little parts that they're having some problems with still. But most of the time, if there's a problem, they can usually track it down. The bad thing is we as customers aren't used to paying for someone doing the research to find out what's wrong with the car. We're used to it when we go to the doctors and they take x-rays and they do all of that, and they haven't told you what's wrong yet, but the bill's $1,000. Well,
that we're accustomed
medically, that's okay. But in a garage now, we're not really used to that yet, and that's part of the shock as well.
That's part of what's happening these days, though, huh? With that system and everything.
That's right. There's systems now where a good system just to keep track of all the paperwork. There's about 500,000 pages of information out there on most cars right now. Just bulletins and repair manuals and all of that. When I first got into the business, you'd have a book that was about 300 pages, and that would tell you how to fix almost every kind of car. Well, now 500,000 pages, and then
my goodness,
and then the ability to be able to track that information. Now they're putting all that information on computers and not just on disk, but on CDs now to be able to speed up that search time and be able to find the information. Well, somebody has to pay for the $20,000 investment that the garage guy just put out to buy the equipment just to look up the information, not even fix it. That's just to look it up.
Just to find out what's wrong.
Yeah, so, it becomes frustrating to the motorist. It does a little bit.
We'll talk a little bit about what the advantages, if any, there are of that system. Right after a quick break, be right back with John Paul from AAA.
It's for one day only, and that day is tomorrow. The Shamrock Sale at Rhapsody Showroom in Southeastern. From 10 to 5, you'll find a fantastic selection of new and used pianos, organs, clocks, and artwork. The finest collection ever. Kimball, Baldwin, Young Chang, Wurlitzer, Gulbranson, and more. Buy a new piano for as little as $49 down and $49 a month. Come along for Irish music, shamrock cookies, balloons, and a real saving of the green. There'll be prizes and surprises too. Tomorrow only, 10 to 5 at Rhapsody Showroom. They have the best staff in the area, and that's no blarney. 77 Turnpike Street, Southeastern.
When asked in a nationwide test which regular ground coffee they preferred, Maxwell House or Folgers, more people responded. Even Folgers drinkers chose the taste of Maxwell House coffee, with the richness that comes from coffee that's blended with Colombian beans. Because better beans make better coffee. Folgers.
What if you tried to visit all 1.2 million places that take the Discover card?
Turn right, turn left, go straight.
You'd be very busy indeed.
Bill, please. Thank you. Gotta go.
Hopping from restaurants and hotels
Checking in, checking out.
to airlines and retail shops.
1 shirt, 2 pants, 3 belts.
To 1% yearly based on annual purchases.
1 million places left to go.
Cash back from coast to coast. It pays to Discover, the card that pays you back.
We're back on there. We're talking with John Paul from the AAA. He's in the Rockland office. We're at 587-2400 if you have any questions or comments or experiences with used car purchases that you'd like to share, good, bad, or indifferent. He's here to give us some hints on how to avoid as much as possible being stuck. And it is possible to do that. Now, we were just mentioning the mechanics and the fact that now with the computerized engines, you have to have a different outlook on what it's going to cost you just to find out what's wrong, what it's going to cost for them to find out how to fix it. But you made a good statement there that I'd like to share with the audience that, a really good mechanic's just enough to...
10% of what's wrong. I don't do fuel injection work. I can take care of everything else on the car. If that problem ever comes up, then we'll take it and we'll bring we'll arrange to have it go to the dealer for you, and we'll tell them what we've done to the car.
So know who you're dealing with
That's
is
right.
the question.
That's right.
Know who you're really dealing with.
It's good once you're established with your garage. Once they know you and they know what you expect out of your car, that's a big help too.
Okay. I guess, and the question just occurred to me while we're talking about all this. I guess we get to be very cynical and very suspicious these days with some of the stories we hear. Generally speaking, now, when you turn in a used car, say if someone turns in a used car to a dealer, now he's going to turn around and sell it. Do they really make sincere attempts in most cases to do whatever that car might need in small? I mean, obviously, when you turn it in, it's because, in many cases, because you're tired of whatever little problems are beginning to happen to that car. There are folks, of course, who turn in cars routinely every 2 years or something, and they always want that new car on it, and they don't want to go beyond 2 years. Those, I imagine, would be the best buys.
That's right.
If you could be sure that that's what happened.
Yeah.
Do they usually trade them in when they do that?
A lot of people don't want to have to deal with trying to sell them themselves.
It's a hassle.
There's always a certain liability, if you will, that if you're selling a car and maybe something happens within the first 7 days, if the car doesn't pass the Massachusetts inspection, that buyer can come back to you. So a lot of people don't want to have to deal with that.
Okay, that's part of the new.
But usually on a 1 or 2 year old car or 3-year-old car, that's not really going to be a problem. But a lot of people don't want to have to deal with the phone calls at 11 o'clock at night and the bartering that goes back and forth. But most dealerships, when a used car comes in as a trade-in, they'll run through the car and make sure that it's safe. They may not put 4 new tires on it. They may only put 1 tire on it or 2 tires on it. They may not tune the car up if it's running reasonably well.
Wouldn't that be logical, though, to get it all tuned into spiff and shape? That's why I'm questioning.
Not really, because of the amount of cost involved. Even if at the garage level, if the parts that go into it are $100, and if they have 100 used cars, well, they're not going to want to put, I don't even know what that is, $10,000 out to of repairs that may not be necessary. But what they'll do usually is check to make sure that it will go through the Massachusetts inspection program without any problems. Okay. And that's what they'll call, a lot of times they'll say, we have a 32-step checkout process before you can buy our car. That's usually looking at the brakes and so forth. But we're still firm believers in, whether you come to some place like the AAA Diagnostic Center or your own good independent garage, that before you buy a used car, have somebody else check it out, just to make sure that everything's in line. Most any car dealer, within reason, will say, okay, we'll put a plate on the car, take it, just make sure you bring it back the same day kind of thing. And there's two good opportunities
Well, that's
there.
a good opportunity.
Yeah. One is first to check the car out and make sure it's okay. The second thing is, too, you may have not really driven the car other than, you go into the parking lot and you kind of look at it and you say, boy, this would be a nice car. And you haven't really driven it. So if you can have the car for, 4 or 5 hours or the day, put a few miles on it. Make sure that car is going to be a good car for you. I've been saying for a while that buy with your head, not with your heart. Too many people go into a car dealer and they'll see a car they like and come to find out it's not really the car for them. But they thought they really liked it. But once they have it, they've found that it's not really what they want. And the other thing when you're doing your negotiations with the dealer, and there's always, car dealers are the last of the people to horse trade with.
That's for sure. And especially with the used car, right?
That's
Even
right.
more so than the new car we already talked about?
Most of the time with used cars, you don't know how much it costs. You go in, there's no sticker, there's no price on the window. You go in and you say, how much is that? And what do you want to offer for it? So you have to be a little aware, find out
Well,
what
that's interesting, because I'm used to seeing used car lots with all those, chalky
and that's
signs on the windows.
Yeah.
Is that gone by? Am I passé?
Yeah. Well, some
Only,
Yeah, some still do that, but you don't really know if that's a good deal. So do your homework a little bit ahead of time. Use the Consumer Reports kind of thing to find out if that car has typically been a pretty good car. They list all that stuff out.
Where it ranked
they
with
have
it,
they have their recommended cars and their not recommended cars. And
Does someone like a consumer guide that tells you about new cars also tell you about used cars?
sometimes, usually, I think it's the April issue, and usually
Okay.
they'll list the used cars as well. But always keep in mind that the best car, whether it's the most trouble-free car there is, whether it may be a Honda or a Lexus or whatever, if that car wasn't maintained for the first year, when you get it, even though historically the car has been a good car, you may not have such a good used car because of it. So look for documentation. Look to see if they've changed the oil regularly, and look to see if there's maintenance records and that type of thing. If you're buying it from a private party, see if they can come up with that stuff. If you're buying it from a dealer, see if you can get the original purchaser's name and give them a call.
Give them a call.
Yeah. Most people, the deal's over with as far as they're concerned, so they'll be up front
Say,
with you.
that car drove me crazy.
Yeah, boy,
Don't buy it.
am I glad I got rid of that.
Yeah.
And, you just go back to the dealer and say, no, I'm not interested, and, end it at that point.
That's interesting, because most people don't think about doing things like that.
Yeah, you have
And do-
to.
or to-
A lot of people
I mean,
will just...
I don't, so I'm just wondering how...
Some people will just save receipts, if they go someplace to get an oil
Keep
change
them all
or
stuffed in one
something.
envelope or
Yeah,
something.
and they'll just, have them at least. So that's kind of good to see, too. Sometimes every little thing, and they know how many miles per gallon got since the first day they had the car and
The
all of that.
typical little old lady from from what who drove. Things do exist, yeah.
Yeah, some of those cars can be a problem, too. Some of the ones that are very, very low mileage can be a little bit of a problem. If you find a 10-year-old car with almost no mileage on it, really have that car checked out, too, because that could be a headache as well.
Okay, now for the obvious reason that they might have turned down the odometer,
that's-
but what about if they really truly didn't drive it very
If
much?
they
Is that a
really-
bad thing for a car?
It can be, because a lot of times the seals inside the car tend to dry out, and that car may turn into a car that burns some oil or leaks oil or something like that. So there can be that problem, too.
How about, this is interesting because it came up in conversation just yesterday too, if a car is only driven on local little jaunts, never gets on a highway to go very far, does that really do the car any harm? It seems when you get a new car, they say take it for a nice trip, don't drive it too fast, but take it on a nice long trip where you could get that motor really purring for a couple of hours or something. Does that apply?
It's a good idea.
More exercise, let's say, just like for the body?
Kind of, because what we've seen as change your oil kind of person, they should actually car can
places you can look in the car to see if they kind of match that.
That's right.
For wear.
You look for wear and tear. You look at the brake pedal and the gas pedal. Is it extremely worn? Does the door open and close nice and easily? Sometimes you'll see a car that shows very low mileage, but you'll open the door and almost kind of clunk when it opens and closes. Well, that car may have been used to deliver the paper every day, and, there was somebody getting in and out of that door every day. Well, it shows low mileage. Well, maybe it's a lot more mileage than it really shows. The interior of the car, is it worn? Does it have burn holes in it? Does it look more worn than a car with similar mileage would? Brake wear, tire wear, that again goes back to having the car checked out. if the car has 20,000 miles on it, but it has a second set of tires on it, and they're half worn, you're suspicious at that point.
Something doesn't jive,
right? Yeah. The other thing that you can do, if it's a car you're buying from, say you're buying a Pontiac from a Pontiac dealer, you can have them check their service records, and they can see that if there's been any warranty repairs done to the car. So even though that car, and it may have nothing to do with the dealer you're buying it from, may only show 20,000 miles on the speedometer, they may run the history of the car, the service history, and find out at 40,000 miles it had a catalytic converter replaced under warranty. Well, wait a second, there's something wrong here, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
So even if, and then there are engine changes too.
Oh yeah, you can,
So it might be on its second go round.
Yeah, that's always a possibility. We don't, because of the speedometer laws, we don't see that quite as much anymore. But still, occasionally, cars that come from out of state, cars that go through different title changes. Start out in Georgia, they'll hit Massachusetts or go to New Hampshire and then go to Massachusetts, and somewhere along the line, the title, the mileage will disappear off the title, and that happens once in a while. So that's always something to be a little aware of too. The southern cars. Some dealers are big promoters in selling southern cars. The advantage is no rust.
No winters.
No winters. So there are some advantages there, but I haven't been down south a lot, but where I've been, everything's about 1 million miles from every place else.
That's so right. As the crow flies straight down the road a piece.
So you tend to put a lot of miles on a car. So if you see a relatively new car with low mileage, maybe that really isn't as low as it says it is.
That's interesting, too. Now, we talked about the interior of the car itself. How about what an engine should look? Not that I know if I looked in it, but I would hope somebody that I took with me would know how clean or not so clean an engine should look.
It's nice if you can get to it before a reconditioner gets to it. Because a lot of times you'll get a car that has been to a reconditioning shop, and they'll literally wash the engine, steam clean it, polish it. They have a coating that they spray on the engine. So sometimes you're not seeing the whole story there. You're seeing this nice, clean-looking engine. But again, bringing it to someplace to have the car checked out, they can do a little bit. They can look under the car, see if there's, is there really a half an inch of crud at the bottom of the engine? Is there really a lot of sludge built up inside the engine? Even though when you open the hood it looks pretty, is there more to that than
too pretty is a warning sign?
Face,
huh? Yeah. Really shouldn't look that pretty.
Well,
should.
Depending
it's a
on
working engine after all.
Well, yeah. So that's something. But a lot of times reconditioning shops will, as a matter of course, when they do the interior and polish the car, they will do the engine. But
steam clean it, is
steam clean it, and then they actually put up a type of polish on the engine, so it looks nice and shiny and new. So.
Interesting. We're learning lots of facts today. We'll learn many more right after a quick break. We're at 587-2400 if you have questions of your own to ask of John Paul from the AAA. Stay with us.
Videoland in Brockton is New England's video supermarket, the largest in the Brockton area with more hits and copies of hits. Videoland has over 40 copies of Die Hard 2 and Air America, 30 copies of Taking Care of Business. They have over 14,000 videos and more than 300 Nintendo games for rent. Memberships are free and rentals are for 3 evenings. New members who join get their first rental free. Videoland also has their own VCR repair department. Mention this commercial and get $10 off any repair or cleaning. Videoland, 2 minutes off Route 24 at 164 Westgate Drive, Brockton, next to Papagino's. Part of the WBET Vacation Giveaway. Office copiers are a vital part of any modern business. If you have one, you surely know how necessary it is to your day-to-day operation and how things can really bog down when your copier isn't working right. If office copier problems are causing you headaches, perhaps it's time to contact Bay Copy in Rockland. The advantages are many. Bay Copy is a local firm staffed by people you know. They're at a fixed address and offer the finest copy products and supplies, plus professional service on your copiers, often on the same day. When you do business with Bay Copy, you're not getting a copier from one place, supplies from another, and questionable service from still a third. Bay Copy services businesses, government offices, and other organizations all over southeastern Massachusetts for over 15 years, offering the finest in service and products. They feature Mita and Konica copiers and first quality supplies to match. They also offer the latest state-of-the-art fax equipment. For all of your copy needs and peace of mind, call Bay Copy at 871-6670 or toll-free 1-800-258-8133. Bay Copy, 100 Reservoir Park Drive in Rockland.
There's only one way to put a big bounce into your Easter celebration, and that's with the FTD Easter Basket Bouquet. Just call Holmes McDuffie Florist in Brockton or Whitman. Its bright, cheerful spring flowers in a pastel wicker basket make the perfect gift or decoration for Easter, and only your FTD florist has it. So hop to it. Easter is March 31st, and Holmes McDuffie Florists at 110 North Layden Street, Brockton, and 571 Temple Street, Whitman, will put a big bounce in your Easter celebration. Phone 586-2000.
This is the perfect time to discover the many things to see and do right in your own backyard. Here's a suggestion from the Plymouth County Backyard Explorer. The Dyer Memorial Library, Route 123 in Abington, is the home of the Historical Society of Old Abington and an excellent source of genealogical information. Many of the items relate to the area's shoe industry and the Abington shoemaker whose invention revolutionized shoe manufacturing in this country. Other exhibits feature boxing immortal John L. Sullivan, who was a former Abington resident. Dyer Memorial Library is open Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday from 1 to 5 p.m. For information and more details, telephone 878-8480. The Backyard Explorer is brought to you as a public service by the Plymouth County Development Council and Abington Savings Bank, with offices in Abington, Halifax, and Kingston.
We're back on the air with John Paul from AAA, and we're finding out the signs of a good used car and the ways to try and avoid being stuck. And there are ways. I'm surprised to realize that we could be so bold as to ask to do some of these things to a car, and your advice is if there's any hesitation about letting you do them, there's your first answer right there. Don't buy that car.
Pass on the car.
Yeah. Now, for instance, checking the oil. Now, certainly if someone's wise, they're going to take care of that ahead of time, but maybe they didn't think of that. So if you get a look at the dipstick.
They may not change the oil right away. I would personally rather see a car that when I pulled the dipstick out and checked the oil, that maybe it was just a little bit dirty and maybe down just a little bit.
Looks natural.
And not either nice and fresh or really horrible looking. The other thing is, too, where you put the oil in, the oil cap, if you take that off and look inside there, you shouldn't see a lot of sludge buildup. It should look nice and clean inside there. So, that's a tip. Look at the coolant. Make sure the coolant's nice and clean looking.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of look inside the radiator. Make sure that looks good. Look at all the tires. Make sure they're worn nice and evenly. Make sure they all match. Make sure they're not off of 4 different cars. There's 4 different tires. They don't seem to match, but they're all on the car. That's always a concern. If you see real irregular tire wear, it may be as minor as a front end alignment. It may be as major as a bent frame. So, again, be a little aware of what you're looking at. We have a couple other notes.
How about the shocks?
Yeah.
It says pass the bounce test. What do you do to give it a bounce test? Take it out on a rocky road?
No, actually just stand next to the car, stand in front of the car, and give the front end and the back end a good push down.
Yeah.
And the car should just bounce once, maybe 1.5 times, and return to where it started. If the car bounces 3 or 4 times, the shocks are worn out. And in the newer cars, they're not shocks, they're actually struts, and that may be a $300 or $400 expense. So, what you think is, it's a minor problem, may turn into a $300 or $400 problem.
Right off the bat, right?
That's right.
And now when it says body lines should be straightened too, this has to do again with front end alignment or an accident?
This has more to do with an accident. Make sure the car doesn't if you can, sight down the edge of the car. Try to pick a straight line on the car and just kind of get down on your knee and look at it and see if no waves in it. The people who appraise cars, they actually take a little magnet and they go around and they look to make sure that the car's steel all the way through and not any body filler or plastic. That's a good way to look at it.
Because if it's got a nice new paint job on it, or the paint job looks too good, that should be another.
If it's a year-old car or a 2-year-old car and it has a nice brand new paint job on it, how come? There's a reason behind that.
So don't fall in love with the color either.
That's right. That's right. It may be a totally different car underneath. Like the caller that called in and said, "Who would buy a state police car?" Maybe more people than we know. They are sold in auction pools, and it may be cleaned up and it may look nice. And we've had people come into our diagnostic center in Rockland, and we'll say, "Oh, where'd you buy the police car?" "What do you mean police car?" And they'll say, "Well, didn't you notice the speedometer is certified, which means it's very, very accurate." And they'll say, "Oh, I wasn't aware of that." I said, "Well, at one time this was a police car." Oh, so that.
Generally speaking, that's not a good idea.
Well, Some of them, it all depends. A lot of time how they're maintained.
They're those movie cop pileups or
that's
something.
Right.
Yeah.
And that brings another form of used car, and that's like the executive car or the demonstrator car. Every once in a while, you see those for sale, and those can be really good cars. But then again, it could be a car that was used at a training center for students to work on and completely disassembled and put back together again.
Ooh.
When Spencer for Hire was filming in Boston, every couple of months there'd be a Mustang for sale that was in Spencer for Hire. I don't really know if I'd want to buy one of those cars, so you have to be a little bit aware of something like that too. So,
interesting.
But, the executive cars can be very, very good cars. They can be a little bit more car than you thought you could afford, which is great. You could get a few more luxuries in it. Maybe an airbag, some of the really nice things they have, the anti-lock brake system. Because that's a year-old demonstrator, you can buy it a little bit more reasonably. The other trap to get into is maybe you don't need all those toys either. You may be looking at a car that is a little bit more than you can really afford, but you say, boy, it's got all this, and it's got this, and it's got power windows and power seats. Maybe you don't really need power windows and power seats. So, really look the car over and see if the car's for you. That's really important.
What your own personal
That's
thoughts
right.
would be.
That's right.
Now, when it says the warning lights, those are some of the first things that go, aren't they? And what does that indicate? Lack of care, or
lack of care. You want to make sure that when you turn the key on, just to the on position, that all the warning lights that should illuminate do. If you see the oil light doesn't work, or the brake light doesn't work, well, it's possible that they could have been disabled for a reason, because maybe the car's got extremely low oil pressure and the oil light stays on. Well, they may have disconnected it just so it doesn't show up. So you should kind of look and make sure that everything's there and everything's working.
sometimes it is just a matter of a little connection or something.
Sometimes it's just a bulb burned out.
Yeah.
It could be that simple. And the same thing with the outside lights of the car. If somebody's driving a car around with one headlight and they haven't stopped to fix that, what kind of maintenance have they really done to the car? I would much rather have two headlights than get an oil change sometimes. So, are they really doing the routine maintenance of the car? So that's important too.
Okay, they all give you clues. And then when you get to start it, it should be starting nice and smooth, no matter how old a car it is. How much do you allow for, or do you allow anything for age? Start as smoothly as a nice new car?
It should start smoothly. There's no reason why a one-year-old car or a 6-year-old car shouldn't start up and run smoothly. They're all under the same emissions requirements. They may get to the bottom line a little different ways with fuel injection or whatever, but it should start up. It should start up nice and smoothly, and it should, maybe 15 seconds of warm up on a cold day or something. But that's really all. That's really all that's necessary. You don't want to be faced with a car that's going to continually stall every time you drive it. So if somebody says, well, yeah, it's been sitting out here for a while, you want to make sure that, tell them I'll come back tomorrow and make sure it starts okay.
Okay. Start it today and come back and start it again tomorrow.
The other thing you want to do, too, with startup, when you start the car up, turn the steering wheel to the left and the right. Make sure it steers nice and smoothly. Cars made in the last 10 years or so that have power rack and pinion steering. When the steering goes bad, it'll tend to its first clue is first thing in the morning, it'll steer hard for just a minute. So if you get in it, you start it, and it steers hard, well, that's anywhere from a $400 to a $1,000 repair to fix that. So something that you may not be aware of right away, and it may turn up 6 months later. Well, you're better off knowing about it right up front. So.
Sure, absolutely. And when you got it started up, you should be able to check the exhaust.
That's right. You should look and make sure that there's no black smoke coming out of the tailpipe, no blue smoke coming out of the tailpipe. On weather like this we're having today, little condensation's okay, but there shouldn't be big clouds of steam coming out of the tailpipe either. They all individually mean different kinds of problems. Oil burning, fuel system, internal engine problems. They all have their own clues, so you should really look at that. The other thing to do, if you can take a piece of paper and hold it near the tailpipe while it's running. Sometimes when you're just looking at the exhaust coming out of the tailpipe, it sort of blends in with the surroundings. So if you take a piece of cardboard or something and just hold it there, you can get a little better idea of what color the smoke actually is. Little condensation, a little white smoke is fine, but big clouds of white smoke isn't. So, That's
no matter how cold it is.
No matter how cold.
Because I know I've been behind the line in the bank drive-up or something and see all these clouds of white smoke coming out.
It shouldn't make your car disappear in it. Again, some is always normal for this time of year, but it really shouldn't be these big puffy clouds that you sometimes see. And sometimes the exhausts will actually have a certain odor to it. Something that makes your eyes water is a fuel system problem. Something that actually almost has a sweet smell to it is back to that white smoke. That could be a cylinder head gasket or a cracked engine block or something along those lines. So you have to just kind of know what you're looking for. Using tips like this is one of the things that can help. Again, we're big into recommending having the car checked out somewhere. Get the wheels taken off and look at the brakes, and a lot of those clues help really know the history of the car.
Good ideas, very good ideas. Another quick break, and we'll be back with John Paul from AAA and 587-2400 if you have a question of your own to ask about you buying a used car. Be right back.
The war in the Persian Gulf is over. Never have the American people been more proud of the accomplishments of our servicemen and women. Now that they're on their way home, the Enterprise newspaper is giving its readers the opportunity to show that pride. Pick up an Enterprise on Sunday, March 17th, and you'll find a free vinyl bumper sticker, red, white, and blue, that will tell our returning service people how we feel about what they've accomplished. The Sunday Enterprise on March 17th. More than ever, it's about your world.
The original pub in Brockton is back and better than ever. So are their Friday and Saturday night dinner specials. Choose baked haddock with crab meat stuffing and Newburgh sauce, chicken cutlet parmesan with pasta, or eggplant parmesan, all $8.95, or roast prime rib of beef au jus, just $9.95. That's Friday and Saturday dinner at the pub. Any night, Monday through Saturday after 4 p.m., ask for your $5 off any 2 dinners at the pub. 38 Center Street in Brockton. Stop in this Friday and Saturday and say hi to Joe.
Your colored pictures deserve the best processing, and you deserve the lowest price. You get both at Gilchrist 1 Hour Photo in Brockton. With each roll of colored film processed, you get a free roll of film and a free mini-album. And they have free express pickup and delivery. Take advantage of their 1 hour processing and their same-day service on enlargements up to 5x7. Buy film by Kodak, Fuji, Konica, Agfa, and Ilford at wholesale prices. Gilchrist 1 Hour Photo at 21 Pearl Street next to Goddard Medical in Brockton, or phone 583-2479.
Star Market in East Bridgewater is the area's newest full-service supermarket featuring great values for your home. For entertaining, they'll make up a fresh deli platter with the finest ingredients for any party, large or small. This week, Pearl or Mosi corned beef, brisket, $1.29 a pound. Irish soda bread, $1.99. Green cabbage, 5 cents a pound. Make it a habit to shop Star Market. Easy to get to on Bedford Street, Route 18 East Bridgewater, opposite the high school.
Well, we've given you a goodly number of tips here. A couple more that I want John Paul to address. One is on transmission fluid. We've talked about exhaust. What should we look for in a transmission fluid now?
The transmission fluid, you should start up the car, let it warm up, come up to temperature. Take the transmission dipstick out. Transmission fluid you check with the engine running. Take the transmission dipstick out. The fluid should have a good reddish color to it. It shouldn't be burnt looking. It shouldn't be varnishy looking. And strange as it sounds, you should smell the transmission fluid. It shouldn't have a burnt odor to it. It shouldn't smell like anything other than just plain oil. All those are clues to the condition of the transmission. The other thing, back to starting up the car, when you first start the car up, after it starts up and runs for 10 or 15 seconds, put the transmission quickly into drive and reverse. It should engage those gears immediately. There should be no delay. Any delay would indicate a transmission problem. So all back and transmission problems today can run into $1,500. So
wow.
Any tips you have of something coming up in the future, it's better to know
Back
now.
off, yeah.
That's right.
Back off. And how about tracking? What does that exactly mean? Is the car tracked straight?
You want to see if this you need 2 people for. You want to drive the car as straight as possible down a straight road and have somebody follow from behind and just look and see if the car lines up evenly. You've probably seen cars, and I'm sure your listeners have seen cars go down the street that look like they're crooked. That would indicate a major accident at some point.
Or
a broken suspension part. You can buy a totaled car and put it back together again. You are supposed to notify the buyer of that, but some places they'll just say, well, it wasn't an accident, we repaired it.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a
You
problem.
said something earlier, and I don't remember whether it was on air or off, so we'll repeat it just in case, that what is not said is as important as what is said when you're purchasing a car.
That's right. Sometimes when you're looking at a car, especially with a private party sale, most people will tend to brag about their car. But also listen to the things that aren't said. Like, if you looked at my car and say, well, the car's never been in an accident, that's a good sign. Well, if you don't hear that being said, maybe the car wasn't an accident. Or somebody who says, well, I change the oil every 3,000 miles. Well, they may not be saying that, and that may be telling you that they were a little lax on maintenance. So what isn't said is important too. So
good point. Very good point. And we talked also about the fact, with new cars, and you mentioned earlier that it's one of the few places left where you still wheel and deal. Lord knows I wish they wouldn't. Wish you could walk in like you do to the department store and there's a price on the dress or suit or coat or whatever, and that's the price you pay. You never could start to try to wheedle them down there, but you have to with cars. You just plain ordinary expect not to pay the price it's asked, or what?
That's right.
Always an asking price.
There's always
open to negotiation.
There's always an asking price. There's always a negotiable price. On new cars, AAA has a service, and Consumer Reports has the same service where they'll tell you what the dealer cost is, and then you just sort of figure everybody has an opportunity to make a profit, and you just sort of figure that in.
What's a good profit on a used car? If it should you expect to get book value, or how close to it, up or down?
Depending on the condition of the car, and depending how popular it is. Sometimes the book value doesn't always lend itself to its popularity of the car. Certain model Volvos, certain model Hondas tend to get over book value because they're so popular and people are waiting in line for them.
Huh.
Some other cars that just don't have the popularity, you can buy it considerably less than book value. So you have to be a little bit
Even
aware.
though it's in good shape.
That's right, even though it's in good shape, because the car just doesn't sell for one reason or another. Toyota Camrys are a real popular car, but one with a standard shift may not be a car that sells very well. So you may be able to do extremely well on that car.
Good point.
Yeah. And mileage may be a factor, too. Sometimes you can look at a car with 50,000 miles, and the dealer may have taken the car in at a low price and said, well, I really have to discount $2,000 because of this high mileage. Well, 50,000 miles isn't really a lot, but as you come in, they're going to say, well, this car only has 50,000 miles on it. So, is the glass half full or half empty? Same kind of thing with the car. And use that as a negotiating tool. If you see the car and it's a little higher mileage than what you'd expect to see on a 1 or 2 or 3-year-old car, and they're still selling it for book value, kind of remember that they're probably looking for a greater profit on that car, and you see if you can back them down just a little bit on it. Again, buy with your head. If you have a set figure that you can afford to spend, and they can't meet that price, walk away from the car.
Okay.
Eventually you're going to find the car.
Be patient is another clue.
That's right. So don't let your heart get in the way of your head and say, well, it's only going to be another $50 a month. I'll buy it.
Uh-huh.
Well, that may not be the wisest decision. So
especially if you find something wrong with it later.
That's right.
Now, we mentioned last time about buying new cars and about women's feelings about walking, or what it looks like for a woman alone to walk in. And, of course, these days, there are many more women living alone, heads of households, single parents, whatever, who have to do that from time to time. Right. Now, we mentioned last month that, maybe you need to bring a brother, a father, a friend, a male of some sort along with you, just so as not to be intimidated the moment you walk in the door. Does that apply as much for used cars and more so?
Sometimes having somebody, just to kind of look under the hood, even if they don't know what they're looking at, always going in with someone else is a good idea.
So it looks as if you've brought an expert with you.
You're on their turf, so it tends to be they have the advantage right off. They know how much the car costs them. They know how much they want to pay for the car, and you're going in
blind.
That's right. You're going in blind, and there's a lot more of them than there are of you. It's very few of us that can go in with your checkbook in your hand and say, I'm willing to pay this much for the car, do you want to sell it? Usually that's not the case. So, the more people you can bring with you almost, the better off you are.
Because they don't know who those other people
That's
are
right.
either. Okay.
That's right.
So it's just a good, male or female, it's a good point to bring someone else with you.
Bring somebody else.
Again, a reminder, as you said, that they're all working on a commission basis, usually straight commission.
Straight commission.
Very eager.
That's right.
to make a sale.
They're in the same boat everybody else is. They're trying to feed their family, and they may be getting 20 to 25% commission on the profit of that vehicle. So, they want to try to sell the car for as much as they can. Hopefully, within the next few years, we're going to start to see more no-dicker sticker prices kind of thing, where you actually go in and the price says $12,000. That's the price.
Oh, heavenly days. Will that actually happen?
Well, there's a new car line that General Motors is developing and is starting to come out now called Satin.
Mm-hmm.
The Satin car, from what I understand, is going to be sold that way. You come in, you look at the sticker price. It's not a negotiable price. That's the price of the car.
Will that be to our advantage, generally speaking?
I think so, because from what I understand, they're only looking to make a reasonable profit. On a new car sale, 3%, 4%, 5% on an average car is what everybody considers a reasonable profit. 25%.
Too much.
A little too much.
Yeah, way too much.
Yeah.
You said you do seminars and lectures for single
We've done
people,
a couple,
especially
yeah.
females buying them. You got one coming up?
Not that I know of, but
Okay.
I never know. Every once in a while, our public affairs department gets a call, and they want to
They
put
pull
one
one together?
Yep.
So give a call to the office at 617-871-5880 and check it out and see if there's going to be one happening sometime when you're thinking about a car.
If it's a group, or we can always put something together for a group of anywhere from 6 to 60.
Good. And then give them some advice on how to deal with that, especially if you have to deal with it alone.
Sure.
We've learned a tremendous amount today, and we've learned that we need to take control again.
That's right.
Just as we did about the new cars, need to go in prepared with the information, with the invoice, with the value of the car. Same thing applies here. The book value, and do some of these tests. Don't be intimidated by someone saying, "Well, no, I'd rather you didn't do that." That's the first clue not to buy it. We've learned that much today, John. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Really interesting program, and we'll be back with the AAA again next month. We'll be talking about your travel programs next month, because AAA can be the first stop on the successful and enjoyable and relaxed trip with the hints they can give you, and even the mapping out where you're going to go. We've got someone in the family on a trip this weekend, mapped out by AAA and heading up to Montreal.
Perfect.
We'll be back again on Monday with another edition of Conversations. Until then, Marian Wroble saying thanks for listening and bye now. Thanks, John.
Thank you.